Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports. We have just finished practice one. And the big news about all of the practice one is the fact that Lewis Hamilton of the Mercedes leads after practice one on a soft tire with a time of 1 minute 43.033. We're going to talk you through practice one quickly, give you a recap of what happened, all the nicks and bouts. First time back in Singapore since 2019.
Yes.
But yes, Reece, take us through how.
Yeah. Interesting first practice session. Obviously, lots of cars coming out early in the session to get some installation laps done. We saw the likes of Lando Norris with a lot of Flover's paint on his car, so obviously running some updates for this weekend. Obviously, early on, we also saw Charles Leclerc having issues with the brakes. So for most of the session, he was in the pits
Yes.
getting work done on his car.
And I mean, in a weekend where we've got Red Bull, potentially taking the drivers' championship with Max Verstappen, to see Ferrari have issues with Charles Leclerc so early on, he went on his out lap and didn't even finish the out lap. Immediately had problems. They brought him back into the pits and spent more than half of the practice session in the pits trying to fix the brakes. They bled the brakes, as it's said. And then, went out on track, at least at the end, then managed to get a couple of laps in so on his softs and a medium lap, I think, as well. All that.
Yes.
So at least they did manage to get some laps in, but there was a little bit of an early concern for Ferrari if that would have turned into a bigger issue, I think.
Yes. Well, luckily we had Carlos Sainz having a pretty good session out there, finishing sixth overall,
Yes.
with 1 second slower lap.
It's just
than-
1.1 seconds slower
Yes.
than Hamilton's lap, also on softs as well. But as we know with Singapore, it's a very, very tight street circuit.
Yeah.
So it's one of the most challenging tracks on the calendar, if not some of these drivers would argue the most challenging.
Yes, it's definitely very physically challenging as well as mentally because the walls are so close to you the entire time.
Mm.
And we saw quite a few people getting a bit
But
loose in
yes,
some of the
a bit
corners.
close to the wall and sometimes making friends at the wall.
Yeah.
As we saw, Russell literally just kissed the wall. He just
Well,
lost
right
it
this
a little
way.
bit and managed to slow his car down enough. Didn't do any damage at all, but did literally just kiss the wall with the front of his wing.
Carlos Sainz almost hit the wall at one stage.
Carlos
Very, very
Sainz
close.
on a fast turn almost hit the wall, and then literally not even a minute later, we saw exactly what can happen with Carlos Sainz almost losing it, as we saw with Lance Stroll, who then red flagged the practice session at around 25 minutes, 30 minutes left, 25 minutes
Yes.
left. So he red flagged because he did manage to clip his back left tire back into the wall.
Yes,
Went
breaking
out of
the
the slide.
suspension and causing a puncture,
Yes.
unfortunately. So that's one less set of tyres for Aston Martin
The
this
Aston
weekend.
Martin this weekend already. But speaking of Aston Martin, the interesting thing is that both of them only finished practice one on mediums. They didn't have any soft runs, but they really held up really well. I mean, Lance Stroll, for all that he's had his red flag, is sitting eighth currently off after practice session one, only 2.1 seconds behind. So
Well,
on a medium
Vettel
tire,
not very far behind either. Also on
and
mediums.
Vettel as well, also on medium tire, not very far behind. So Aston Martin actually looking relatively strong otherwise for this weekend. Sebastian Vettel, rather Fernando Alonso was doing very, very well for most of the practice.
Yeah, he will definitely be someone to watch for this weekend.
And also has only finished practice on medium, so hasn't had a
Yes.
soft run yet. So
He did finish in the pits, unfortunately.
yes.
Alpine were doing some work on his car, so we don't know yet what the issue was, but we shall find out
No.
for sure.
But just to run you through the whole order and give you an indication of times. So Lewis Hamilton, the big surprise of the whole day is the fact that he managed to get the Merc round. And we were talking, funny enough, inside saying, Merc don't look particularly strong this year, etc., etc. But this track should be better for them because it is a bit more of a downforce track, which does suit them more than a fast track, as you'd see with Red Bulls, for example. So Ferrari and Mercedes should be a lot closer, if not in some instances better than the Red Bull this weekend, simply because their cars are made to do this better than the Red Bull is. But leading through anyway, we have Lewis Hamilton first from Mercedes with a time of 1.43.03. And then we have Max Verstappen, as usual, in Red Bull at just 0.08 behind Hamilton, so only just beat him. Charles Leclerc following that in only had about 4 or 5 laps around at 0.4 seconds behind that, so a bit of a jump from there. And then Sergio Perez from Red Bull as well, 0.8 seconds behind that in fourth.
Yes. After that, we have George Russell in fifth, a whole second behind his teammate, which is quite a large gap for so early on in the weekend. But hopefully he'll be able to close that a bit later. We then have Carlos Sainz in sixth with 1.1 seconds behind the session leader. Then Ocon, which was quite a surprise in the Alpine. Then followed by Lance Stroll, who had his crash obviously midway through the session. Then followed by Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso finishing up the top 10.
The top 10, yes. And just to run you through the bottom 11, as we said, Sebastian Vettel quite quick on a medium tyre at 2.3 seconds behind, but then Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. Both McLarens have been quite disappointing so far this practice session. Very disappointing, if we're honest, in terms of their times.
I'm quite glad to see Danny Rick at least ahead of Lando Norris.
Daniel Ricciardo is well ahead of Lando Norris, obviously, but Lando Norris does seem to be running a lot of new upgrades. So I think it's just trying to get to grips with that, to be fair. Valtteri Bottas in 13th, Kevin Magnussen of the Haas in 14th, Yuki Tsunoda 15th, Alexander Albon Williams in 16th, Zhou Guanyu in 17th, Mick Schumacher in 18th, Lando Norris, as we talked about earlier, in the McLaren in 19th, and of course, Nicholas Latifi rounding up the pack in last of the Williams at 4 seconds behind.
I think he owns that spot by now.
You know what the thing is? It should almost be retired. I think after the season, I think they should retire the 20th slot, and I think it should automatically go from 19th to 21st because I think that is Nicholas Latifi's number.
Yes,
but so an interesting practice.
Yeah,
I think a lot. Obviously, the teams will use this for stats. They'll use this for all sorts of research for getting tactics for the race. It's a very difficult climate, very difficult race in itself. So going into practice 2,
yes, it should be a very interesting session. Obviously, the first session fully under the lights, which should be quite good. It'll be the first full night session.
Yes, it will. So we'll look forward to seeing that. But that was your practice 1. So this is Forever Motorsports. Please do feel free to drop a like, subscribe, follow. If you want to see how you can watch Formula 1 this weekend, there is a link in the description for how you can do that and a video explaining exactly how you can do that. So do enjoy that, and we'll see you now.